right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals, and everything that we talk about leads to deals. As you know, I believe sales is literally one of the greatest sports in the world. And my goal is to bring those world-class athletes of sales into this game. If you have the same burning appetite and desire to improve yourself, to grow yourself, to be able to leverage the tools and the tricks that the big guys use in this industry to make more money, I want you to like this podcast, follow this podcast on any of the major platforms, and I want you to give a warm, enthusiastic welcome to one of I consider a good friend, but somebody I look up to as well, Stratton Brown, or Strat Daddy. What's going on, brother? Thank you for coming out.
What's going on, bro? Thank you so much for having me.
You're looking good, man.
You know,
You're looking good.
I'm
yeah.
Ds, you know what I'm saying?
What is the Deal Champs? Can we talk about that real quick right out the gates?
Yeah, bro. Deal Champs is a podcast we have and a brand. I don't know what we're gonna do with it. Our last event had like 450 people there for 2 days.
Nice.
And we aren't necessarily selling a lot of education out of it. But for me, I personally think media is the strongest thing to get whatever you want in business, because it's sales through a medium where I can contact everybody. Like marketing is just sales, but to a lot of people at the same time, right? And so the more media attention I can get, the more opportunities that come into my life, the more so with that, because I was going to stop doing it this year because I was like, I don't get the point of it. But then I was like, Stratton, you can get 450 people in a room at a time who paid to come see you, figure out something to sell them, and then we can figure out the rest later. And even if we're raising cash for a storage facility or a company we want to buy or whatever for virtual help, then it works.
Yeah, I see you, and I think of it as a personal branding exercise too. And there's one of my guys that I look up to via books. It's Gary Vaynerchuk. I've only had the opportunity to meet him one time in person, but one of his original books, I believe, is like Jab, Jab, Hook.
Yeah.
And so for a guy like you, you're in your jab mode, or at least with those events. If you don't necessarily have that end core product, being able to have that capacity to build that value and continue to give and give and give before your next ask, I think it's wildly smart. I miss going to those events. Obviously, I'm offshore here, so I miss being able to go there. And that's actually where we first met, was one of these events.
Yeah, I met you at Boardroom.
That?
I think I met you at Boardroom.
Right? Boardroom. I think the first time was in Miami.
Yeah, bro. It was Boardroom in Miami with me, you, Los, Q, and how did I forget? What's the Cuban guy's name? How did I forget his fucking name? He's always with Q. He does mortgages.
Yeah, got it. It's going to come to me in a second. He's the man.
He's dope as shit. He spoke at my mastermind that you spoke at. Oh, he's going to be so pissed if he hears this. But there was all of us together. It was a great time.
We had a blast. That was the first time I had to have a talk with my new Latin American CFO. He was like, what is Live and why was it $27,000? And so, trying to explain to a guy offshore our marketing expense, because it was like 27 the first night and then the lower in the teens the second night. But that's literally the first time I got a vibe for you in this industry. And I was brand new to this industry. So I was just like, boom, let's just jump in. But we had a great night. We had a great opportunity kind of bonding and kind of seeing things that were happening in this space and getting to know each other, man. And so from that day, you're somebody I've really put on a pedestal, man. And so I'm excited for people to hear your story. I've watched it grow. You've known me almost the entire time that I've been in your guys' vertical as well too, Strat. And so, but I don't know the precursor. I know that you had some aspirations from the athletic side, but can we start kind of like when you maybe pivoted out, or how that worked in kind of your sales history? Like, what was your first kind of sales job, even if you didn't realize then it was sales job?
What was my first sales job? My first official business was mounting my teammates' TVs in college, because I was the only dude who had tools, because I grew up really blue collar in the country. And so I'd mount dudes' TVs in college. And so I'd say that was my first sales job. And it was only $20 a pop. And then there was only a certain amount of demand, but I'd say that was my first official business. Everything else for me growing up was just sports. And I guess leadership is sales. right? So I got to sell the team on why we need to be the best. I got to sell all that other stuff. And so I'd say it's been going on since I was like 13 is when I started to get really good at sports. And like there was like a future in it. You know what I'm saying? It's very
Yeah,
primal.
yeah,
He's the biggest, he's the fastest, he's the leader. So you got to learn how to lead at that point. And so I think leadership is still sales.
100%. So for everybody out there listening too, like that's a great thing. I put a lot of alignment between like self-discipline and being an entrepreneur, being good at your craft, whether it be sales or sports or whatever. And so if you're good in sports, it's because you have that vibe, you have that discipline, and you are selling yourself, right? You're selling your coach, you're selling your teammates on whatever it is they're going to do. Ultimately, though, the sports career pivoted out. And so kind of walk us through that and then what you did for like your first few years out of sports.
Um, I thought I was going to make a ton of money. I didn't make a ton of money. My only goal coming out of football was how can I make like six figures a year was like my only goal at the beginning.
How long ago was this? How many years ago?
2018, 2019.
Okay, cool. So about 7 years ago, you're faced with I'm no longer in sports, and the question is how do I make six figures?
Yeah, like the big thing was like, how do I make six figures? So I started like a home inspection company that I found on Craigslist. I did like a mock inspection. Nothing came from it. I was like, fuck this, bro. Crawl spaces suck. And so I didn't do that. And then I ended up working for a guy, and that was like my first true sales job. He was like the biggest investor in town. I ended up actually knocking doors for him for a summer to buy pre-foreclosures. And I knocked doors so much that my
How'd you
pregnant
meet
wife
him?
was cheating on her. A meetup, like a real estate meetup.
So you went to a real estate meetup. You went up to him, or somehow you sold yourself to him, and he gave you an opportunity, or like because a lot of people go to meetups but don't walk out with a job.
So the way it went, I went there and I was going only guy who at that point in my life, he was like, I used to make 30 grand a year driving a tractor. Now I make $200,000 a month. And he's like, if you don't believe me, here's all of my checks. And he started showing me all the checks. And he was like, and I'm going to buy a jet. I already own like 60, 70 rentals, and I own a bunch more in Indiana. And this is what I'm trying to do. And I didn't think anything about the conversation, but it was like a paradigm shift for me of like what's possible and how I'm not
Yeah,
crazy for wanting to go big. And then after that home inspection business, like I just picked up the phone because I got his number. He was like, yeah, reach out to me if you ever need anything. And I was like, bro, what do you do? And so I ended up just work. He was like, go download this app, go knock on all these people who are about to lose their house. Call me when you get someone who wants to sell. And so I just did that for a summer and was dusk till dawn and just was knocking doors, trying to get someone to sell me their house in foreclosure.
that reminds me of Wolf of Wall Street when he's sitting there in the restaurant and he goes up to him. He's like, "Hey man, how much do you make?" And he says, "I forget the numbers. Like I don't know, 80,000 a month." And he's like, "You showed me a pay stub where you make $80,000 a month, and I quit my job right now." Now yours is a little bit more of a delayed fuse, but for sure a paradigm shift took place, right? You know, and you're like, "Damn." Because those was that kind of like the first time you'd ever heard somebody talking those numbers?
Oh yeah, like in high school and middle school, I was like in and out of my house because I was just such a shithead of a kid. And I was living with my best friend, and his dad's very wealthy, really blue collar, owns a construction company, one of the biggest in the state of Utah, and they're worth gobbles of money. But he'd never really talk to us about money. He'd more so teach us like business lessons. To where if like this example is always in my head, me and my best friend, and he's like my brother, and I call his dad my dad. If we were up at
Yes, sir.
5 a.m. cleaning the boat, we woke up too late and we'd get our asses chewed out because we're fucking lazy. And then we'd
I
go to
love
football
that.
practice and then we'd have to come back and work some more. Right. And so him, I knew that they were wealthy now seeing like the type of numbers that they do. But Alan was the first time I'd ever been exposed to someone like talking about it openly. Like, because in the business
Yeah.
world, it's once you get to a certain point, you're not bragging. This is like, bro, this is what we did. You're excited. Here's what we've accomplished. Here's what we're going for. And it's a lot different than what, let's say, normal people like to talk about.
Yeah, kind of similar-ish, at least in regards to having somebody, a mentor like that. Not even to coach me, but to plant seeds I didn't know were there until they later became watered. But my parents, amazing parents. I had the world's best parents, but they got pregnant at 16, married at 17, didn't go to high school. My dad was a roofer his entire life, so I
Oh
didn't
shit.
grow up around any level of wealth. We lived in the same house for 18 years, never once moved up the socioeconomic scale ladder. But ultimately, I ended up through a friend. His dad accepted us down to go live with him in Florida. He wanted us to work at his travel club. It was the first time I saw a palm tree, brother. I was so excited. I had never seen a palm tree before in my life. I pulled up into this big ass house. I had never seen a house that big before in my life. I had never seen a house with a covered pool like attached to the house type
Yeah.
stuff. Like but it paradigm changed me. And although he never told me how much he was making, I was willing to sacrifice everything, bro. Like it's just that opportunity was there, and it was like, yo, it's game time because I don't want to go back to where there's no palm trees, baby. I only want palm trees in my life for the rest of my life, et cetera, et cetera. So it was good to have him as a business mentor, and I worked for that guy for 11 years. And so for you, I know you knocked doors for a little bit, which is a baptism by fire. Uh, is that what like started you on that sales career? Was that guy your sales mentor at all, or walk me through who kind of like sparked
No,
you more
bro.
on the perfecting your craft?
He sent me on like a John Martinez thing. I want to say like 6 months later. I don't know if you were around when John
Wow.
Martinez was
I've
there.
heard the name. I've seen some people have the recordings and stuff.
Yeah. He sent me to like one of those things, but like we weren't really big into the sales. It was more so because he's my mentor at that point in time. He was really blue collar and like, bro, he legitimately willed the world to his like what he wanted. He wasn't ever working on sales. He was like, no, I'll show up at your house and I'm gonna get this fucking contract signed and we're gonna get it done. And it wasn't necessarily all sales, but for me, sales is no different than sports and hard work. Because as you hone the skill, the more money you make and the better you get, right? And so then I
Amen.
didn't start really taking sales seriously until I started my own companies. I worked for him for about 18 months, and then I broke off on my own. And then I really started to take sales seriously because like I was spending money to get my phone to ring or like to cold call
Yes.
and text. And then it's like, fuck, we better convert these bitches because if we don't, it's going to be very, very rough. And that's when I really started to take it seriously. And then we grew Call Magicians. And that was when that was a little bit different because with what we were doing with wholesaling, it wasn't nearly as many at bats in a day as Call Magicians was, believe it or not. Like, because for whatever Call Magicians, like I'd have to take 8 to 10 calls a day, like to close clients. And
Yep.
again, like the industry, especially the clients we serve, we had a decently high churn rate. And so you have to sell a lot to keep that back door from falling out because you have to build up staff so you don't
Yep.
just start hemorrhaging money, right? So you have to outsell your churn rate. And so that's when it really started to click for me to like, oh, fuck, like I now, and it's like different levels of it. And I guess it comes with the pressure you apply to yourself and the
Yeah.
situations you put yourself to where I'd say it started with the wholesale stuff when I was doing it on my own. I was taking it seriously, but wholesaling, especially in California, you're not getting a ton of at bats, bro.
Not at all. And your cost per lead, your barrier to entry is
Yeah.
exceptionally high. Your cost per deal is exceptionally high. I think anything in California, if you can do it in California, you can take it on the road anywhere. It doesn't mean that you should take it on the road anywhere because if you can master it in California, if you can be profitable in California, the spreads are so big, the demand is so high that it's a tier one market. I have a client in another business, and they spend not just with me. I wish it was all with me, but they spend like $400,000 or $500,000 a month in marketing in the San Diego market. And like you're spending $500,000 a month in marketing, you better be dialed in on every facet of your business.
Oh yeah, bro. And so that's when money started to get tied to going out, and then for the guy I was working for is I'll eat what I kill. But like I knew I could like buy some houses or whatever. But when it's not just eat what you kill, it's eat what you kill and more money's going out the door at the same time. I'd say that's when it got really serious and I started to take it seriously, started watch like reading Jordan Belfort stuff,
Yeah.
um, you honestly turned me on to tonality when I first met you, because like I didn't really think about it a lot. I was like having conversations more like Sandler sales, question based. But then
Yeah,
now I really one especially now with this challenge, I've been working on my tonality a lot, because I think that's something that's
excellent.
really, really underrated when it comes to the sales game. If you can match that tonality and like kind of, you got to get into their space, not necessarily mirroring exactly, but being where they're at and
Exactly.
asking the question the right way and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, I think that for me the biggest add on to tonality is actually the silence. You know that the gap between words matters almost more than the words themselves. I call them power pauses. I used to have a guy, his name was PJ Lachance. He had like caterpillars that sat on his eyes. He was the biggest. He never trimmed them. He was like 70-year-old white guy, but dressed to the nines. And he would come over as a manager, and he talked like, if you've ever watched Elon Musk answer questions. If you ever watched
Yeah.
Elon Musk answer questions, he doesn't just spit a response. He pauses. And
Yep.
everything he says, he's already got the answer before he says it. He's just running a couple of plays of that answer before he goes. And watching him create those uncomfortable gaps where the seller of the home or whoever has to talk, or that input that he just said carries so much more weight because it doesn't have a word right after it. Like I love that for the art of sales and the art of communication, and there's still so much to learn. Like I don't know about you, but like I know that there's so much more I still need to learn about communication.
Oh, do you read a lot of psychology books?
Probably no. I read a lot of self development books, but never like not too much human psychology books, unless it's an or biography about somebody.
Okay. Like, have you read like Robert Cialdini's stuff?
No, never.
His stuff is really good. I've started going more into like human psychology because I want to be able to ask the questions better. Like I want to get those questions dialed just to get the responses that I want and to take them to the place I want them to go. Is like the
Yeah.
next step, at least in my sales journey. And even again, bro, it's all sales. If you want to be successful in life, you have to be a good salesman because you're either marketing, leading, or selling someone at all
Yeah.
times in the business
One
world.
of my top kids here. So for everybody watching this podcast, I have a call center outside of this, and I have one of my. He's actually my sales trainer now. He was like, dude. He's like, I hated everything about sales before I worked here. I never in a million years would envision myself being in sales. His name is JP, and he is an elite guy. But he needed a job. He was like, screw it, I'll be miserable for a couple of months. But he came in, and then he like loved it. I mean, really fell in love with it, became really good at it. And I think it's because that old Zig Ziglar saying, he's like, nobody was ever born a salesperson. Like the doctor never looked at somebody and said, oh, you know what? He's going to grow up to be a salesperson. It's like, it's something that everybody has in them, whether they want to do it or not, or whether they believe in it or not, is that you can learn to communicate at a higher level than the average person. We're not talking manipulation. We're not talking about NLP. We're just talking about being able to have a conversation with people and move forward towards a desired outcome that benefits
Yep.
both people. So that's it on that side. Let me ask you though, going to now, like, so you mentioned Call Magicians. For people who don't know, that was was a really healthy like call center type environment, VA environment, excuse me.
Yeah.
You got to see the underbelly of the REI space almost before even I got to see it, or around the same time. What's your takeaway from being a service provider for VAs, especially the call side of it? Like now when you look back, you say, oh man, this is what these kids were really missing out on. This is where I wish I could have helped more with. Or
Um, Looking back at it, and again, I looked at what you had and the culture you could build, and I thought if you're gonna do a call center lead gen company, your internal turnover is way too high virtually, and it's really hard to build culture virtually. To where like we got up to 150 agents within like the first 18 months, which is like a lot of scale to add on to something like that. As far
mind
as like
blowing.
labor, like that's like a
Yes.
lot of labor to add into that. And so culturally, um, we were the only people though before you came in that like we trained our people on sales 2 times a day, like sales,
Nice.
personal development. Like we were going hard on it. And I would say on the underbelly side of it, people just thought like you could get a random person on the phone and have them like gather some information. To in all reality, like you got to have a conversation with them. You got to ask the right questions. And I got my first sales coach besides John Martinez was Steve Trang, who's still a good friend of mine. And like I
Yeah.
paid him to train our entire company twice a week. Like I paid him out of pocket to because I knew sales training was that important. And he had a real estate
Yes.
sales training, and we wanted to same concept as Lamasu. Where it's like, no, we're going to deliver quality leads. It's not just like
Yes.
what do you call it, like a heartbeat in a home. No, we want
Yes.
to deliver a quality lead that can come in. If you want less quality leads, we can do that, but that's like your choice. I personally think it clogs up the pipeline.
It does.
It wears out your sales reps. You don't want that. So like we were going for really, really quality stuff. And at that point in time, I hadn't I started it because I went to a couple different call centers. I had like 8 to 12 people at a time through different outsourced call centers, and all of them were shit. Like no one was good, and you couldn't get anybody trained up good. And so I think like the underbelly of it is you had a lot of before we came into it, there was a lot of companies that were just offshore doing it because they saw opportunity. And it's no
Yeah.
miscredit to them, but they didn't necessarily get the American culture. Right. And so like that's a really, really hard gap to bridge. If you were and then they had gurus coming in and doing it, but then they'd white label an outsourced company, and that still wasn't any good. Right.
Yes.
And so my thing was like, okay, I see an opportunity where we could charge premium margins, we could service the client better, we could deliver a better quality product. But then I'd say the number one thing that I hated managing 150 people.
Yep.
And I was going for like growth. Like if I was because for call magicians at that size, I honestly committed just to throwing all profits back into growth because like, you got to get
Yep.
past that brink again. Because if I was at like 80 people, I would have been fine. But if I'm growing at the growth rate I'm growing at, I got to invest a lot into our people to develop our people so they can develop more people and all that other stuff. Does that answer that question as far as like the underbelly? Like there
It,
really
it,
wasn't
it, it
quality
does.
product.
But one of the things you said that I don't think a lot of people will pick up or appreciate on that blew my mind is there would be like these, like you said, completely offshore, nothing really REI connected, but it would be people who had some type of VA labeled service or type service. And so not really like structured or set up, true heartbeat in a home, just burn the house down, if you will. And I would have people who would like come to guys like me and you, and they would be like, "Hey, I just fired this group ABC callers, right?" And they were like, "But then my coach put me on to DEF callers." And it's literally the exact same callers that they had before. It was just they
Yeah.
went to a guru, and all the gurus were white labeling the exact same like teams of people offshore. And so I would get people, and they're like, "Yeah, but then I signed up for this guy, and he put me on with his callers, but the results were the same." I'm like, "Buddy, it was the exact same callers." Like it was wild when I first got into this space with kind of the shell game, if you will, and
Yeah.
hand to God, there is not another company that I referred people to at all throughout this entire journey for VAs other than Call Magicians and Strat Brown. So it's like I put you on
Thank
a pedestal because I saw what you were doing. And Steve Trang, somebody have so for those guys and gals who are listening, Steve Trang's a super awesome sales trainer in the REI space. I think his tactics are relevant almost for any space. He's a little bit more methodical. Like I'm a hype
Sandler
monster.
based. Yeah. He's like
There
a
you go.
Sandler based guy.
He's Sandler based. He reminds me of a doctor talking to me. It's like, but I'm going to listen to him and I'm going to appreciate what he's saying. So, for those of you who don't know, definitely check out Steve Trang. He's got a great training platform, and he's one of the guests I've had come in and speak to my affiliates as well too. And so, you did call magicians, and then kind of what are you up to today?
Now, so I pivoted out of that. Honestly, me and my partner didn't get along, and I full transparency. I was like, okay, do we want to do this, and do I think we can provide as quality of a product as I want to with the infrastructure that we have? And
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, so Scott's doing that. If it's not at Scott's quality, then I don't want to do it because I'm not going to sell an inferior product. And then I was like,
right.
I know I'm not going to move to fucking the Philippines to get this done. Like I was like, I don't see the upside for us to do this. and I wasn't getting along with my partner anyways. And I even called you. I was like, bro, I'm fucking pivoting out of this. Like, I'm not doing this.
Yep.
And so we pivoted out, and then now we're just not I wouldn't say we provide highly skilled and trained professionals from around the world. I wouldn't call them VAs. Like, we hire people with master's degrees
Exactly.
and bachelor's degrees.
Yeah, I think for me, the reason why I wanted to do offshore was the CPL for the REI space almost mandates that you have to be offshore. And when we say CPL, we're talking about cost per lead. So whether it's solar, whether it's roofing, whether whatever industry out there, there's a lot of industries that don't actually support financially being onshore to be able to do it. So then it's just, where do you trust offshore? And I agree with you about the anti VA type vibe, because I'm blessed enough to pay enough here to be able to hire English teachers, instructors, all these, like you said, people with masters, people with college degrees, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really been and it's too, it's given them a slice of the, I always say that I brought a piece of the American pie down to Colombia, and people are appreciative about it for the most part, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, last thing about these offshore call centers.
Yes.
If you go to a company and they are not at scale and they say they can help you, they cannot help you because their people are not specifically trained in the space, right? If you go to a company and they're a roofing lead gen company and then they tell you that they can generate leads for you in the REI space, you are their guinea pig, and it is going to take a significant amount of time to get quality product going. Just fruit for
Yeah.
thought there.
Yep, I think that's a very valid point. What about you? What are you doing? So you have your new assistant company, right? That's virtual
Yeah.
help. Okay.
Yeah. So we
Do you
have
still have the
virtual help.
wholesale business? Are you still doing commercial? Like, what are you up to now?
Oh, yeah, I guess we are. Yeah, we're still buying storage. I'm negotiating on a couple big deals now. Um, right now
How
I'm
are you
doing a
sourcing? What are you doing for those?
cold call. I have a girl
Excellent.
in house who will cold call for me, or I'll cold call myself.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like mail. It works, but it's a lot slower. And then, because like with me, because your partner Q's going balls to the wall, honestly, and he's crushing it. I could buy one or two of these a year, and I'm fine. Right? If I buy
Yep.
two of these a year for the next 20 years, and it is going up quite a bit, real cash flow.
Yep.
Right? And so with that, we got the storage stuff going. We have virtual help. Right now, I'm building a wholesale company from zero to $1 million net, live on the internet every day, live streaming. You'll see me on IG, and it's showing because I've scaled multiple companies now to seven figures. None seven figures net in that fast, right? I haven't even got to seven figures gross revenue that fast, and so it's a lot of people have a misconception of what entrepreneurship is, to where a lot of it is just getting kicked in the fucking teeth all day, getting rejected just like you're in sales, but
Yep.
persevering through solving the problem and then reiterating on that lesson and then solving the next problem, the next problem, the next problem. So I want to show people what it's like to, like, hey, you say you want a really fast growing business, but can you handle what it takes with a fast growing business and the bandwidth, the hiring, the leadership, the sales, all that goes into it to actually make it run?
So this is a traditional single family. This isn't, you're not going after the big commercial portfolio for this challenge.
No. This will be
Okay.
traditional single family, California, Midwest.
Okay.
And we
I
are
love it. Let
turning and burning on single family houses.
I fucking love this. So let me just follow this straight. You started a $0 to $1 million challenge. This is gross or net?
This is net.
Ooh, I love it. So effectively, what do you got to do? You got to bring in 2.2, 2. Where do you need to be at? You have mitigated costs because you're small right now, or where do you have to be at gross to be that net?
Right now I don't have any costs in that company. Well, we just hired on our first sales admin. Um, for that, lead Zolo's our lead provider. We're starting to like 60-40 lead split, and then we'll go 70-30. So I'll need to do like
Excellent.
2 million. I'll need to go like 2 million net.
Yeah.
Like 2 million
Yeah.
gross, you'll take home that, because as you build, you still have to invest in infrastructure for like the team members and everything else, pay out
Of
sales
course.
reps. And so if we hit 2 million, I mean, we got 11 contracts in the first 2 weeks. So that's not bad. But we need to essentially get 2 a day. I'm getting about 20 leads a day right now, like PPL leads. And so
Yep.
that's the lead flow you need. Well, I'll probably up it like 10 more once I get some infrastructure built out. But I
Uh-huh.
mean, if you're doing that, odds are I'm only closing on 50% of them. If you're going like
Yep.
nationwide like that, it's going to be really brutal. And so let's say we close on 50% of them. If we can lock 2 to 3 contracts up a day at a 15K spread, that's where we need to be at.
Yeah, I think the tough part becomes not in the beginning, but at month like 3 to 4, just because you're going to have that compound pool of leads that you still need to go back and follow up
Bro,
on that
nobody
offer, and
understands that. That's what's going to
that's
be
when
hard.
exactly. It's not the beginning. The beginning's cakewalk because you only got 40 leads in your CRM, but when you have 190 and 15 offers made, and this and this and this, that's where it gets really, really. That's where the stress comes.
Exactly. That, and then I was talking to Nick Perry the other day, and comping nationwide is a bitch. Like really
Such a bitch.
getting values dialed in on that and like being confident, because in sales we want to be confident. It doesn't mean we're aggressive, but we're very confident with what they're saying, and people can feel that on the other side of the phone. If you can't go in confident with your offer on that property, they're going to fucking smell it from a mile away.
Yeah, we had a similar issue in our wholesale. I won't say the name of them because I'm under NDA, but a PPL provider reached out to us and they were like, hey, we're going to give you all the leads that we can't sell. We heard you guys are monsters. I love it. And so it was like based on certain regions where they just didn't have clients to buy them. And we got deal after deal after deal. All of a sudden, deal here. But then our PPC that we paid for fell through the floor. Because what we had done is we had ingested all these free leads, if you will, all these free leads on a rev share split into the system. And there just wasn't enough time to get to the PPC leads over
Yep.
here as effectively as we used to. So I'm
Yep.
spending 15,000 over here. I'm getting free money over here. All I did is just move it over here. So I'm not making actually any more money. So I had to reach out to them and was like, unless it's only in these exact territories, I can't do it because, like you said, comping nationwide and even dispoing nationwide, like you're going to, for me, when we do anything outside of our markets, like, are we dialed in on novations? And how's that buyer activity look on investor lift? Because those are the ways for us to be able to dispo effectively without having to put as much effort into it as a traditional
Exactly.
market, if you will, trying to build from scratch.
Yeah.
How do people follow this journey? What do we just follow you on
Um,
IG?
Follow me on IG, follow me on YouTube, Facebook, and I mean, before this, I was live streaming, bro. 30 minutes of calls and like nobody picking up. Like 30 minutes, but we had to call through. We have 200 leads now. We have 50 people we can't get a hold of, and so I was calling through that list. And that's kind of the name of the game in sales. You got to stay on top of them. Everybody gets dialed 4 times, no longer 3. I said we're going to go the extra mile. You dial them 4 times, try and get them on the phone. They're on drip campaigns. But yeah, and I've been back into the sales journey heavier because I haven't had to sell one-to-one in a very long time. Like when you remove yourself a little bit from the company and like you hire on sales reps and it's like sales training with our ERC company, bro, I had a sales trainer at that point too. Like I didn't have to do anything. So it's been interesting to get back into the game and build it all from scratch, sell your ass off, and then showing the next person how to sell, lead that team. It's been fun.
And to live stream it takes cojones. Like it does,
Live
because
stream it
there's a
takes.
lot of ugly stuff that happens in the art of sales. There's a lot of I shouldn't have said that. There's a lot of I should have called this. There's a lot of regrets, and it's all there. And so like I want every single person to go to at Strat Daddy, right? STRATTDADDY.
DDYY.
DDYY, because you got to follow this journey, man. This is better than anything that I could cover, because we're going to watch you go through the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the rights and the wrongs live. That's amazing. And that you decided. Why did you decide to post it all online?
So I'm waiting on an enormous amount of money to me, like 7 figures, with our ERC company. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
join
okay.
the club. I mean, sorry. I'm waiting on that too.
right? And I planned very poorly. Let's just say that. And
Yep.
so I was like, all right, how can I go out and make seven figures in the next 6 months? And I had to
Yes.
come to a conclusion of, hey, this other money's never coming. Essentially, I've just in my head, it's never coming. So how do we go out and just make the same amount of money in less time? And so I had to think of
Yep.
it and do it that way, and reached out to Lead Zolo. They're awesome. And then David Old's like transaction coordination company. We got a CRM sponsor. And in sales, I think you need to be creative, but as an entrepreneur, you need to be creative. Just creatively problem solve your own problems. And how can we get to the goal? Don't say, I can't do
Yeah.
it. I have to ask, like, man, how can I go out there and net seven figures in the next 6 months? And this is what I came up with.
Do you, Yeah, I love it. And it's exciting to me. Like, I won't hear anything better than this all day today, for sure, if not part of this month. Like, one of my boys is in a situation, somebody that he's like, you know what? I'm upset a strong challenge out in front, and I'm going to piecemeal. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to collude all these people into my vision. And then I'm going to live stream this vision because guys like you, too, we like that additional accountability. It's additional pressure. You doing this in your back closet, if it doesn't work out, no one really knows. But you doing this and coming on a podcast and talking about it and live streaming it and now getting industry people involved to buy into your vision at the same time, that amount of accountability is part of the motivation. It's the desire. It's exciting. I love
But
it.
we're built for this shit, though. Like, you're like me, bro. I'm a fucking dog. Like,
Ah,
when I went to college, I was like, no, I'm going to play. Like, I don't care who's there. I'm here to win. I'm here to play. I'm going to be All American. Right. And so I feel like in sales, you got to have that same mentality if you want to be that top dog. You're not necessarily
yeah,
going to approach your client like that, but that's what that internal self talk needs to be. And like,
yeah.
I even had to go sell all of these vendors on my vision of, hey, here's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
Here's what it's going to look like. And I had to sell them and get them bought in to want to commit their resources to this challenge.
Yep.
We can make it happen. Right. And so, like, sales is everything.
It is everything, and I'm so, literally I'm shocked. I'm taken back. I love it. I'm going to go out to my sales floor and talk to everybody about this campaign that you're doing because it's so excited. I know you still have your ups and downs. Other than the amount of pressure that you've heaped on yourself, are you doing anything particularly to stay motivated daily? Are you like
Um,
filling the good well up? Like,
I have this Project 369 book, actually. I'm very woo woo, very Bob Proctor, very manifestation, very big on that. And again, I'm not just going to sit there and write it down. It's going to happen, but I think there's something to writing down what you want to happen in front of you every day. So we're focused on it and we can bring that into fruition and it dictates our actions that we're taking every day. Um, I just finished 75 Hard. I'll
excellent.
start. And then I don't meditate. But besides that, I
Yeah,
mean, what else? I don't know what
that's a
else you're
good
supposed
amount.
to do. Like, we got kids,
That's
you know?
yep. Yep. I know. I know. But dude, but what you said, I had somebody on my podcast the other day that I look up to. He's a younger guy. He's in his early 20s, but he's like really successful so far. And I asked him a kind of similar question, what are you doing? And he was like, man, I think this is why I need a guy like you in my life because, I've never written out my goals and I've never written anything on my mirror. And I really don't do this, and this. And in my head, I'm like, wow, you are so blessed because you've gotten so far. But
Yeah.
once you introduce a little bit of that fairy dust, once you introduce a little bit of that calling the universe into an alignment, once you start speaking these things and doing these things and reading these things and making a conscious effort to bring them about, it comes. And so I'm
Yeah.
a huge, big proponent in everything you just said. First off, if you guys don't know Bob Proctor, literally hit pause, go watch anything Bob Proctor, come back. Your life will be that much better.
The man. I mean, and there's something to be said about laser focus on the goal. The goals are there just so we can stay focused on what needs to be done. And when I say it dictates your actions, especially if you're transitioning from another job into something to where you can control your outcomes, right? Because in a lot of spaces, you don't get to control what your life looks like. As soon as you enter sales, you control the outcome of your life. It is you versus you, and then you can move it forward or you can slack and it'll pull back. But it is legitimately just you. Like you're in a battle with yourself for the rest of your life. And so I do think if you can write that stuff down, it's a game changer.
It all helps. It matters. When you said that, I thought back to one of my first sales jobs. My team lead, who I consider my mentor because I didn't know any better, is like this guy teaching me about sales. But I remember he used a kind of similar analogy story, but he was talking about one of the people who did lock-ins, as they were called. It was just paperwork, if you will. And he was like, the thing about that guy over there is that he's really never going to make more money than he makes today. No matter how hard he works today, he's going to get the exact same little check. He's going to wait a year for his next review. He's going to do the, and you start observing all the people out here that have that kind of, now they're locked in, they're boxed in. And he said the greatest part about sales is you get to either give yourself a promotion, a raise, a bonus every single day, or you get to give yourself a demotion. And that was a driving factor. It's like Grant Cardone says, he says, who's got my money, right? Who's got
Yep.
my money? And so being able to wake up and have that ability in sales, although it's a high wire act, if you will, it's not a safe road. But for those who can stomach it, it's literally every day you have the opportunity to significantly grow your wealth, grow you moving forward versus almost any other profession out there.
Oh yeah. And if you are transitioning and like you're in a blue collar space, I have a great story for you. One of my best friends in high school was working for our friend's dad's company, driving a truck and shoveling ditches, essentially. And he was like, you know what, bro? I think I want to go into sales. Every single fucker who worked at my best friend's dad's company was telling him he couldn't do it. I told him, bro, go fucking do it and make more money than God. You got this. You know what hard work looks like. Now you just need to channel it in another direction.
Yes.
And he was like, I just want to make like 80 grand my first year. I was like, that's pussy numbers. Like, let's go for 6 figures plus. And what does he do? He raises his standards and he makes over 6 figures his first year in
Yes.
sales from working hard, because you got to believe in yourself. Don't listen to anybody else. But
Yep.
again, this dude was digging ditches the year before. I played high school football with him. And I was like, bro, you got it. Just go translate that hard work and go out there and get it. And he was knocking doors B2B and went and made it happen. And so if you're in the
Yeah.
space, it's there. It's not like some pie in the sky thing, dude. Like people are out there selling all day.
Yeah. I think that one of the advice I give the REI people is very similar to your journey by accident, I think. But people are like, hey, I want to start out. And I'm like, hey, man, candidly, I really appreciate it. YouTube University is great. There's a lot of great mentors. But one of the best things that you can do is actually just go to a guy who's already successful in your market and just go put in the work. Like, dude, I want to work here for the next year or two. You might not ever want to get away from it, whatever it may be, but to go and sit in one of those offices and watch the sales process go can really help you fall in love with the process, get the education up, and then turn into your own entrepreneurial monster. Because first you got to be the salesperson, you got to understand that, and then running a business while they have similar traits. Being an entrepreneur, these guys that just get to collect big fat checks, they have no clue what happens behind the scenes by being a CEO.
Oh yeah.
It's a completely different ballgame, and you got to have both of them if you're going to be your own wholesaler. Like if you're just going to be a one man shop, your CEO, closer, dispo guy, everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Dude, I was reading something you posted online I wanted to talk about before we wind things up. And you said, hey, is anybody successfully using AI in their sales operation right now? Or something along those lines. I think you just made that question not too long ago.
Yeah.
What do you see with AI and what are you seeing? What was the feedback that you got, et cetera, et cetera?
Um Someone's like use gong. And then I was like, well, do I just fucking make my own gong with chat GPT right now? Like I don't see gong lasting very long. Gong has a certain data set, but then like me and you have a strong enough data set to where I could train any AI I wanted essentially on whatever REI.
Yeah.
But I think from a sales standpoint, no one is gonna. People want people connections, and I think empathy and all of that stuff that goes into a sale, that'd be very very hard for AI to like translate. And it'll probably translate into a lot more in person sales. I just wanted it so our sales admin could go put the sales calls into it, transcribe it, summarize it, and throw it into the CRM so I don't have to take notes. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted it for, right? I just want to streamline it. But I don't think, yeah, there's like the AI cold calling stuff. I think the hard part with that is you run into robocall laws really, really fast. And
Very
like
fast.
you're just you're playing a dangerous game, and that's not you're building your business or house on sand if that happens.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's a good idea. But I think AI overall in the sales game, from a customer support, yes, maybe from like a early touch lead management standpoint, yes. But when it comes to human interactions, people want to talk to people. They don't want to talk to
Yeah.
the robot on the other side of the phone unless they have no fucking clue who it is. But like, I don't know, bro. I don't see it happening. From a
I
sales
think the
standpoint.
scammers I think the scammers are going to do really well with AI and the voice AIs over time because there's so many people, so many senior citizens, unfortunately, that fall victim to the Amazon scams and all those. I think that that's going to have a field day because they don't care about regulations, they don't care about the FTC, they don't care about anything. In regards to our business, what I'm really excited about the AI is on the comping side. Like I would really, really, really be able to love like, hey, here's all these leads. Here's the asking price column. At scale, review all these and tell me which ones have a better propensity.
Yeah.
And if we've talked to them in the past, have they dropped their price? Where's the market gone up faster? Instead of having to do it on a one-to-one basis, being able to
Yeah.
really
Oh
run
my God.
intelligent, high-scale AI comping, it would make all the lead Zolos and all the other guys never want to do business with anybody because they would just run comps themselves. They would just open up a couple of guys. If I could get that scoring system down, which I think ultimately it will come, and it'll come from the major players who have the infrastructure to be able to do it. But I
I'd
really
see
look forward
Wensley
to
doing
AI
it
comping.
first. Robert
Yeah,
Wensley would do it first with his database, and then like
yeah,
really get it dialed. That would be really nice too because every month, if you're doing follow up, you have to go back and check that thing, review it all over again. What's it looking like? Did we have something new pop up? And if you could just go plug it into the system, bing, hey, we're up 20%. Actually, this one just came on the market. Even if you have something that tells you, hey, one just came up, it's sold for 20% more, and it pings your CRM. And then you can hop on it
yeah.
immediately and try and make it happen. That'd be nice.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I love it. For you, man, I always kind of end thinking about your sales story again. If you could go back to yourself, your younger self as you're starting your kind of sales journey, is there any additional advice that you would give yourself knowing, what you would face ahead?
Talk less, listen more. Selling is
Mm,
not talking. Selling is all just questions, in my opinion.
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree. I literally just had this question or statement the other day to my staff. I said, telling isn't selling. They were going to tell somebody X, Y, and Z. And I was like, but bro, you've been on the phones for a year and a half. That's how you're going to word that? And then the talk less, listen more. My first mentor, he said, you have 2 ears, one mouth. Use it in that ratio. 66% listen, 33% talk. If you do that, you can be super successful.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
selling isn't selling either. It's not what you think. Even though Wolf of Wall Street's sexy as fuck, it's not necessarily that besides the tonality. Right? It's a lot more methodical relationship building with these people over time. And that's what selling is. It's not if you grew up in the blue collar space, you think salesmen are sleazy. It's not that whatsoever. You're out there solving problems.
I agree. And then once the light bulb goes off and you realize literally everything, every commercial, every walk down the Target aisle, the way things are positioned, the movies, everything that is going on around you is some level of sales. Everything is some manifestation of sales. It's all to encourage some type of movement behind the scenes. All right. So, virtual help. How do they find virtual help? Do they reach out to you directly to get in touch with virtual
They
help?
can
Is
go
there a
to
website?
virtualhelp.io. I think I got the best VA company name out there. Like virtual staffing
I
company.
love
Come
it.
on, bro. Virtual help.
Yeah,
Bro, I blew
I
everyone else
love
out
it.
of the water. I blew them out.
And you were like, "How is this available?"
Yes. Exactly.
All right. So,
Virtualhelp.io.
virtualhelp.io. And then, what
It,
about you directly? How do we watch this 0 to 1 million challenge?
you can follow me on Facebook, IG. I'm trying to build up my LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Strat Daddy. Everything's Strat Daddy everywhere. Facebook is Stratton Brown. I'm the only black Stratton Brown in existence, so you shouldn't have a hard time finding me. But yeah,
Dude, I'm excited for you. I will be checking in on this challenge. And then also, too, guys, you're in Utah. Is that where you're currently located?
I am
Or you're in
currently
California? Where do
in
you physically sit?
Fresno. Right now, I'm in Fresno. We go
Fresno.
back and
Okay.
forth from Utah quite a bit, though, like 6 months.
Okay. If you have deals, if you're a wholesaler and you have deals in Utah, California, if you have deals you need help with, anything along those lines, you can tell clearly he's an expert. He understands it. Reach out to him. If you got a file that you have questions on, that you're looking to move, let's help you guys help yourselves. Like, let's disposition a deal you may not have normally disposed, and let's get you to $1 million net in the
Hell yeah.
6 month time frame, baby. Dude, I'm excited for you, dude. I value you in my life. I value you taking the time out for here. And dude, I look forward to just continue to see the wins.
Of course, bro. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.